Google Pixel 8 Pro 6 months later. So I've had this phone for a little over 6 months, and in this episode, I want to talk about my thoughts on it now. So the Google Pixel 8 Pro goes for right around $799 for the 128 gig storage, and it goes up from there. I've had this thing since launch, thanks to gift from Google, hashtag gift from Google. Team Pixel sent this one out, but I want to begin by talking about the body and the build of this thing. It's been pretty nice. As you can see right here, we do have ourselves the iconic Pixel camera bar right there, but the matte textured rear on this phone also feels quite good. This is the porcelain color option. They also came out with a minty green, but we also have this aluminum body that feels really easy to hold on to, but also feeling premium. You'll see right there the 5G antenna bar up there is quite noticeable. But along the edges here on the left side, you'll see the SIM card tray available right there. At the bottom, you'll find yourself the USB-C, speaker grills, microphone hole. And if we bring it over here, you'll find the volume rocker and the power button. This kind of reminds me of stainless steel. It has ever since I've had this phone, and while the camera bar can make this feel a little top heavy, I found myself over the 6 months using this phone really enjoying like putting my finger right there to go ahead and kind of grip this phone a little bit better. Also, if you're using it up here, you could actually hold it right here, put your finger like this, and it gives you like a nice little grip of the phone. So this phone wasn't too slippery. The back part is, but the side edges are grippy, and the camera bar gives you somewhere to lock your finger. You could actually probably use this phone with a screen protector, and it's not too slippery, honestly. It's a pretty comfortable hold. So build and durability, it's been strong. It looks really good here, even after 6 months. No major issues. I've dropped it a few times, but I have had a case on it. But overall, it just looks pretty fantastic. It's held up very well. A very premium feeling phone here in the Pixel 8 Pro. One thing I've really appreciated about the Google Pixel 8 Pro has been its display quality. It's a very sharp panel, over 480 pixels per inch. So what that means is that when I get closer in on the text is really, really sharp on this phone. And I really enjoy reading and just kind of like scrolling through the software just because all the text is just tack sharp on here. This also has a flat display. Some of the older Pixels did employ the curved panels. Wasn't a fan of those. Really like how Google went to a flat panel. This feels much more practical to me. And while the bezels aren't perfectly uniform, they do look pretty darn symmetrical. So I think the bottom looks slightly thicker than the top, but it's ever so slightly thicker. Not a major issue. The punch hole camera is a pretty good size, and 6 months later, I've just been really enjoying this panel. I also really like how when you go ahead and put this thing in the auto rotation mode, it actually does auto rotate on the home screen. So let's go ahead and do that now. And you'll see you can go ahead and use this in the landscape option. I really, really like this orientation. It's quite nice. It gives you more flexibility with your panel. Also, if I go to settings here, let's go back and go to display. I really like how the Google Pixel 8 Pro has plenty of display options. Like if you go to colors and adaptive, you can change between natural, adaptive, but they do it in a simple way. You can go to full resolution or you can go to a higher resolution right there. If you want to get even sharper text, most of the time you'll go to the full resolution. So it's kind of like HD or 2K. It's really up to you. You can also turn off the smooth display, which is an adaptive refresh, but I definitely wouldn't do that. And I also like the screen protector mode. It makes accidental presses not that obvious. It also is much brighter than Pixels of before, and it really does give me a really nice brightness no matter what I'm doing. Still not as bright as some of the competition, but it's been plenty enough. It really hasn't been a complaint. If I go over here to extra dim, I like how you can really dim the display. You can also go up here, change the intensity of the night light as well. Although there's no true tone or eye comfort type of feature, I think they could bring something like that automatically adapts. It does have color corrections as well. It has bedtime modes. There's a lot you can do with the display. And overall, it's been a really fantastic experience. This OLED panel does really well when it comes to watching movies, videos, and just reading overall text. So it's been fantastic and very practical and pretty large at the 6.7 inch. If I had any cons, I would say the 20 by 9 is a little bit narrow. I would like it to be a slightly wider, but it's not really a big deal because it's pretty practical day to day. So when it comes to performance, this phone does have a pretty snappy face unlock. So if I go ahead and take a look right there, it goes right in. You can bypass that lock screen. In addition to that, if you go here, the fingerprint is also in a good location and pretty darn accurate. I also really like the Google Pixel's speed. It's gotten much better with the latest updates on board. The latest April patch was a really good one. This phone's been getting very consistent updates, which is what you want to see and what you're going to really like about the Pixel experience. But I like the back gestures on both sides, super smooth on the adaptive refresh, and just kind of scrolling through this phone, it just feels snappy, simple, and easy to use. The Tensor G3 really doesn't perform as well in things like heavier games, but I really haven't been able to choke this phone in pretty much any area. I also think Pixel has some of the best animations in the business. They just look really smooth. For an Android phone, some of the best out there for sure. And the Tensor G3 actually enables the Gemini and AI, and this generative AI on here is built right into the phone. So like I'm looking up some Pixel 9 stuff that's, some rumors and stuff, and you can see it says experimental, but overall just kind of the Google experience, the search, all that stuff, and the AI that's built in with the camera. It enables some really powerful stuff, even if you're not getting anything more in terms of performance than some other premium phones. Like you won't get the best gaming performance, but it can still run games. You won't get the best overall spec on a benchmark when you go to here to Geekbench or 3D Mark, but you're enabling really high quality AI performance. And Google kind of knew this because they put 12 gigs of RAM on this phone. And so far, all the AI features are snappier than way snappier actually than some of the other phones out there. So if you're into AI, you're really going to like this. When it comes to software, the Pixel has been one of the more smooth experiences day to day. I really liked its simplicity, its minimalism, while still being a very Google rich packed software. The navigation modes are still available if you want those old ones. You do have a lot of gesture based features, and they do have a nice little security section that tells you if everything is up to date with your security, if you want to go ahead and scan your device, stuff like that. They got a lot of that. I also like the Material UI. When you go ahead and change the wallpapers and styles, you can really change the color themings. They have really good amount of wallpapers, including now generative AI wallpapers, which you'll find on a lot of newer Android phones. They have some that match the phone if you go with the mint color option. But what's nice about this is that if you go ahead and set the wallpaper, go like this, it will kind of change the theming of the whole phone. And while this does happen on a lot of Android phones as well, it just looks really nice on the Pixel, because on the Pixel, it changes the whole settings as well. Like they'll kind of match the color theming. Up here, it'll match the color theming. It just looks a little bit more consistent here for the software in here. So generative AI, the full Google experience, the search-based stuff with Google, this is a Google experience. It really is. And I found that this phone's Google apps, they're just so much faster than on the iPhone and more consistent. So if you use a lot of Google services, this is the phone you want to buy, a Pixel device. It runs better than any other phone when it comes to Google-based applications. It really does a great job. Okay, so when it comes to the camera, I've been blown away with the level of detail. This is the Pixel. That's the case for my Pixel. I've been pretty blown away with the level of detail, the sharpness. The post-processing can take a little longer sometimes, but this camera produces some ridiculous results. Like they look ridiculous sharp. Have you seen those Pixel photos on their Instagram account? That's no joke. Those photos definitely came from a Pixel. If we go right here, you'll see you have some options right here to tweak. I'm not the biggest fan of the settings layout, but it's still pretty simple. I just think it's a little bit, you got to dive in there a little bit to really change some stuff. But overall, it's a very simple setup. Just take a photo and just kind of works if you really like photography. It allows you to share to social media really easy as well. Camera settings off to the left. They have a lot more pro settings now than before. You have the 50 megapixel, RAW, JPEG modes. And if you go here to more settings, camera settings right there in the app, you don't got to get out of here. Very good. You got a palm timer, frequent faces. There's a lot going on. But when we take a look at some of the results, that's where I really start to get happy with this. This camera shoots photos better than some DSLR based. It's absolutely insane. Like some of the results you get here, they're just you don't need a DSLR. You just simply don't. And it takes very stable video that when you're taking the video, it doesn't shake. So overall, I could definitely replace. Actually, I'm not buying no DSLRs ever again. If Pixel's gonna keep taking, look at this detail. This is a tree, but I mean, look at this. This is absolutely insane. Definitely not gonna need to take any more pictures with a DSLR as long as I got my Pixel with me. That's how I feel about these cameras for just day-to-day usage. It's pretty darn nice. Also, the ultra wide and the standard are pretty high megapixel counts as well. We have like 50 megapixels on the main, 48 on the ultra wide. So no matter which lens you're shooting on here, it's super sharp for this phone. The front-facing camera can use a little bit of work. It's not the absolute best, and if you're wondering, why are you shooting on an iPhone making a Pixel video? That's because I use both phones. I don't care. They can be friends. You can see right here. If I take a photo there, 10.5 megapixel, it's not bad. It's pretty darn good. It does some processing as well, but I feel like they put more efforts into the rear camera, so I would like to see a higher megapixel count, maybe a little bit more of a better hardware camera on the front. They're already doing good with software, but let's up the megapixel count on the front. The battery life on this phone has been pretty darn good, 50-50. So it's a 5050 milliamp hour battery. And after it learns how you use the phone, then it starts to get really good. So I'm not disappointed whatsoever with Google Pixel's battery. It does charge pretty quick via its USB-C. It also has wireless charging. So the phone in general just feels like a very reliable battery champ for day-to-day. You're not going to run out. I noticed once it hits around 80, it starts to charge a lot slower up to 100. That's probably a battery protection mechanism. But the battery, you can definitely feel its weight. It's a big one in here. So definitely, this is a long-lasting phone after my 6 months. The actual phone call quality, it's been pretty good. No major issues. I do find sometimes that the signal bars drop a little bit more than my Samsung phones, but it's pretty good. So I haven't really had massive issues, especially in my area, but report on that. Let me know your thoughts about it. It's still, to me, the Samsung phones still do better in that department. And the latest iPhones actually have done better as well. So years of security updates, maybe a little bit less for major OS upgrades, but this far undercuts the price of a Samsung and an Apple phone that's offering similar specifications. So I honestly think this is one of the best high-end values, and Google is constantly throwing deals on the 8 Pros. With the Google Pixel 8a coming up soon, I cannot wait to cover that one. That one will probably be maybe even a better value steal, but the Pixel 8 Pro will probably remain the higher-end option here. And 7 years of security. We'll see how long they go with the major OS, but this has been a fantastic phone. I really enjoyed it. I just think that it doesn't have the most pizzazz when it comes to the best chip on the market, but it still has some of the best AI features, the actual software experience, what you actually care about, the camera and battery, all this stuff. The user experience is A1 on the Pixel. It's even better than a lot of other Android phones on the market. So this thing is top notch. I really do recommend it if you want a Google-ified experience, like most of the apps you use are Google. You'll definitely really enjoy this thing. So that's it for me 6 months later with the Pixel 8 Pro. Let me know your thoughts. If you have one, drop it down below. And let's hear what you got to say about this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.